Hello and welcome to the Hot Apple Cider Podcast. I'm your host, Ibrahim Abou-merhi. With me today I have Jeffrey Kuhnback, and we're going to be talking about mental health, mental disorders, everything that comes along with that. Jeff, how are you?
Pretty good. What about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. To everyone tuning in, look, real quick update. I said this in the last No, not even the last podcast. I'm recording so far out of order. In episode 3, I think I stated that we were going to be launching on Apple Podcasts soon. Now, we actually launched on Apple Podcasts before that episode even aired. So if you guys aren't aware of that yet and you're still on YouTube, the show is currently available on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify Podcasts, and on YouTube. At this point in time, you're probably going to start getting clips of episodes as well on YouTube. So if you don't necessarily want to sit down and watch the whole episode, you're able to do that in short clips on our YouTube channel. The full episode will also be available, but it's there. Now, if you're already on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify Podcasts listening to this, thank you for joining the club. Thank you for going audio only. It's awesome to have you guys following the podcast as we go along with the show. As always, we have our hot apple cider. We will continue to drink hot apple cider on every podcast episode. That's the name of the show. It's the reason that it's the name of the show. If you've only been on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, you may not know that we drink hot apple cider and may have questioned the name of the show this whole time. But if you knew, you knew. Jeff, we're going to talk about mental health today. I believe you've got a lot to share with me. I've got a bit of a notepad here, some stuff to talk about. Got some stats as well. I like stats.
Boy.
I like statistics. I like facts and having things to document, things to lay it up. One in every 4 people have a chance to struggle with a mental illness at some point in their life. With that being said, there is approximately 450 million people that struggle with a mental or neurological disorder, according to the World Health Organization. In 2013, 1 in every 5 Canadians struggled with a mental disorder. It jumped to 1 in 3 in 2017, and in 2019, it's 1 in 2. How do those stats make you feel?
Personally, it just shows that the world's just going even more downhill than most people are even aware of. The amount of people that now every day are just starting to suffer. It's quite ridiculous at the end of it. It's not something that 1 in 2 people should end up suffering through. It's a ridiculous amount of people.
No, I agree. 100%. Let me talk to you a little bit here. Let the people get to know you, figure out who you are before we begin the show. How old are you, Jeff?
I'm actually 22, recently turned it
All right.
a few days ago.
Happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
Are you in school?
No, currently I'm not. I finished my last semester at Niagara College about 2 weeks ago and just gonna wait until September to go back for now.
What's a quote that's changed your life?
Pardon?
What's a quote that has changed your life?
Oh, that's a good question. If only I had a quote written down here. I'm not necessarily sure though, but for the most time, if I ever do need some sort of quote of inspiration or just anything, I go to Robin Williams.
All right. What do you want to do in life?
Oh, the most
I don't mean
question.
a job. I mean, like, what do you want to do with your life?
I personally am not too certain. I've been actually trying to figure that out for a few years now, and well, I always just end up going with whatever's working at the moment. Sometimes it's doing what needs to be done or going out and assisting people with whatever they're going through at the time.
So from that, I'm taking it that, like, you want to help people. That's what you want to do.
That honestly seems where my life has been going, so might want to stick to that.
All right, all right. Okay, let me dive in a little deep. Have you ever been clinically diagnosed with any mental disorders?
The only ones that I have been clinically diagnosed with are ADHD as well as social anxiety.
Okay. Undiagnosed. Do you feel like you suffer of anything else?
Undiagnosed, yes, there's definitely things that do fall into that category that have yet to have a doctor's approval, per se, on them.
So is it undiagnosed because you haven't tried to get diagnosed, or is it undiagnosed because they're not sure?
Uh, it's been undiagnosed because I haven't actually gone to get them done.
Okay.
It's not something that's honestly the easiest to
Right.
really go out and do.
No, no, I get that. I get that. How would you say these have like challenged you in life? What kind of, I don't want to say walls, but what kind of like hurdles have they placed in your life to slow you down from accomplishing the things that you want to accomplish?
Honestly, it puts a lot more hurdles than most people seem to actually realize. It makes doing the most meaningless tasks seem like climbing a mountain. It's hard to just do basic everyday activities. Conversating with people is a pain. Going out to meet new people, for the most part, will become more of a burden compared to wanting to actually do so. And on the days where things are really tough, just the simple task of getting out of bed and taking care of myself it's not something that actually gets done on those days.
Have you learned to cope? Have you learned to cope?
I've learned to cope in my own special ways. There are some days where I can't cope, but those are the days where it's honestly just going to be the toughest to handle. But for when I do cope, it's just, I find anything that can distract me, kind of escape my own thoughts, no matter what it is. If it's blasting music, going for a long drive, hitting the gym just to get rid of any frustration or uncertainty. It just tiny things that people wouldn't really seem to think would be coping mechanisms.
Yeah, the gym is big. I always recommend people to go to the gym. It's a great stress reliever. It puts you in a different state.
It's definitely hard on some days, that's for sure.
You know, getting there can be the biggest challenge.
Even
that's why a lot of people don't do it.
See, getting there is the initial challenge. That's for sure. But when you're actually there and you're starting, on those days where you had to push yourself to get there, you won't necessarily have the energy to actually push to actually do the workout you want to do. It's a matter of getting past that second hurdle that's there. You have to push past what's stopping you. No matter how hard it's going to seem, no matter how many times you want to quit, you still have to push past that.
Do you have like a support system in place? Do you have people that you can count on, that you go to when you're feeling like that, when you need kind of like some kind of support?
I do have quite a lot of people that would be there to support me in any case that would be needed. Do I often use that support? No, honestly, not as much as I should. I have a numerous amount of people that have always offered, but I don't necessarily take it up on the days where it's not going as well as I'd really hope it to be going.
What do you think that is?
Well, for the most part, I've been dealing with this on my own. I've kept it bundled up, dealt with it for the majority of my life on my own. Never really had anyone to support me or walk me through the steps. So reaching out to people makes me feel it's more of a burden towards them as well as more of an inconvenience to me to be able to just involve them in it because, well, you don't necessarily know how people will react when they know.
Have you ever faced any criticism in life for having these struggles?
I've faced criticism. I've had people straight up tell me that I'm, pardon my language here, but completely bullshitting them, just lying straight to their face. And it's those people that really make it harder to open up to people. As much as you'd want to, there's always going to be those people that won't believe you just because they don't see what you feel.
How long have you dealt with all of this?
The first time I realized that I was dealing with this was approximately 11 years ago. But
so you would have been around 11?
Yeah. And there's
That's
been
hard.
some family members who have realized it since I've been 7, 8 years old. So an even longer distance that I've had family know compared to myself, who it's only been 11 that I've been dealing with it.
Did these struggles have any effect on your ability to go through school, whether that's high school, post-secondary, or even like impacts on finding employment, finding a job, finding a way to put bread on the table? Did these play any kind of role in making that more difficult? How did that play out?
It definitely does affect everyday life. So school, work, to be able to get up and get out and go to school and actually socialize with your classmates, your teachers, have the motivation to actually walk into that class and do the work you're supposed to on time. You just don't feel as motivated to do so. You're more focused on kind of keeping yourself afloat compared to having to deal with school. And when it comes to work, well, that just becomes honestly a game of risk. You have a job that you have to do. You have to be there at a certain time. You have to do the job that you're paid to do. And there are some days where, personally, I will just struggle to get out of bed, and I will know that I have to work in 10 minutes and I have to be there. I have to be ready, I have to be on the phones, and I have to work. But do I necessarily want to? Far from it. And it's the struggle of actually getting up and making it there. That there have been some times where I've actually ended up being late because of it. And it's not something that really makes someone feel happy, because you know this is a job you were hired to do. You are required to be there at that time, and when you let those people down, you end up feeling like you personally let yourself down.
For the people out there listening to the show that also struggle with mental or neurological disorders, do you have a message for them? Is there anything that you want to say to those people?
As hard as it seems to get through everyday life, deal with the issues you do have, there are people who constantly care, who know your struggle, who worry about you day in and day out. They don't want anything bad to happen to you, and they just want you to feel happy and safe. So if you do have those people in your life who are trying to be there to support you, as hard as it will be to reach out to them, do so. On the days where you're really struggling, reach out. And if at one point you feel like you're at your wit's end, get the help that's required. don't do something that will push you past your boundaries. Get the help that's needed. Make sure that you are surrounded by people who care. That would be my message.
That's deep. I agree. Anyone that's struggling, you should always look for help. If you're someone who doesn't struggle with mental or neurological disorders, if you are still struggling in something in life, though, it's always, there's no shame in seeking help. There's no shame in feeling like you need assistance to get through life. Life can be a very challenging and difficult process. The people that don't struggle with these disorders, to the friends, family members, co-workers, bosses, employees of people that do struggle with mental disorders, do you have a message to them? What should they know? What is it that may not be clear to them that they need to understand to be able to successfully continue in their relationship with an individual that struggles with these kind of struggles in their lives? How can they better that relationship? How can they be there and support that individual in a better way than what they currently do?
To those who do not struggle, it's a bit of a harder situation. You have to really observe those who you care about. Follow how they act, they talk. Realize their body movements, and you'll start realizing the slightest change. On their good days, they might have a little more energy in their steps compared to where on their bad days they might be very slow and sluggish and not have the energy to do so. And for employers, there's, as he said at the beginning, there's currently 1 in 2 people that are suffering through some sort of mental illness. Be aware of that and take the time to get to actually know your staff. Reach out to them, have conversations with them, but don't prod the situation. Prodding it will make it feel tougher on the people who are suffering compared to if you're letting them open up to you at their own speed. But also realize that for those who do suffer, there will be days that they're going to be less productive. That's just how we unfortunately function. We'll be less productive on days, but on the days where we're feeling better, we're going to do our best to pick up basically the slack that we left behind. We'll do our best to improve, but you just have to be patient with us in those situations. And for friends, if you know someone that is suffering, the days where you feel something's off, trust your gut. If you feel that your friend's in a deep spot, reach out to them, invite them out, and if they say no, give it a little push, and if they still refuse, offer to come over and just give them company, because in the end, that's sometimes all that we need at that time.
Jeff, I wanna appreciate you taking the time today to come and do this podcast episode with me. I know it couldn't have possibly been easy to open up about some of these things. I want you to know that it's appreciated that you were here. I'm sure it wasn't the most comfortable thing that you can do, but I know that people listening to this podcast are going to appreciate having heard this conversation. People that are out there that are struggling with a mental disorder are going to appreciate hearing the good that you've released today. They're going to know that they're not alone, that there are other people out there that are struggling. Like we said, there's 1 in 2 Canadians today, on average, that are struggling with some kind of mental disorder, and it's not an easy process. So to anyone listening out there that has a mental struggle, I do highly suggest that you do find help, find support Look to your family, to your friends, to your coworkers, to anyone that can be there for you to support you. Turn to them when you need it, and don't isolate yourself. And to anyone who doesn't struggle, who is the friend, coworker, family of someone who does, be there, support them. Do what you can to make their lives easier, and just make the world a better place.
And I will throw one note in here. Don't criticize. Don't say someone's lying, because you do not know how far they had to walk in their shoes to get to where they are. You won't know the struggle they're in. So be compassionate. Be gentle with humans. We're a very soft breed, that's for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, no, Jeffrey, I appreciate you being here today. To all the viewers and listeners, I know today's episode was a little bit shorter, but with what we've talked about and what we've dropped, I feel like this is a pretty good point to end on. I don't want to stretch this out unnecessarily. It was a very concise, specific episode with a lot of truth involved. It was very deep, and this is by far one of our more important podcasts on the show to this day. So I appreciate you spending the time with us. If you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, go ahead, take a screenshot of your screen right now, put it on your Instagram story, and tag the Hot Apple Cider Podcast. We'll go ahead and we'll retweet any of your posts, we'll reshare any of your stories on our Instagram page. If you're on YouTube, go ahead and do the same thing. Like, share, comment, subscribe, do all the good stuff. I appreciate you spending the last 20 so minutes with us. It's been a pleasure having you with us. We've had a fantastic episode today. With that, I wish you all farewell and enjoy the rest of your day. Until the next one, Jeffrey, thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.